Some of the most watched shows at the moment are airing on the CW network. The Flash, Riverdale, Superman and Lois, Batwoman, Charmed, the list goes on. But apart from their airing network, what else do these shows have in common? The answer: they all have CGI used in some way in their production. From airbrushing actors' features to huge epic fantasy fight scenes, each show has a team of specially trained people to implement CGI to boost the appearance of the show. Today we're going to take a close look at the most popular shows on the CW network and find out how much CGI they use and what they look like without it. Before we get started on today's video, please make sure you leave a like down below. It really helps out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our future uploads. Turn on notifications to stay up to date with all of our brand new content. Let's get right into today's video. Let's start with The Flash. It's amazing. A colorful, bright, and dynamic addition to the ever-expanding comic verse that's so fashionable at the moment. Part of the charm and brilliance that makes it so impressive is the way that the CGI used blends so well with real life that even though you know it can't be real, it's easy to watch. The Flash himself is the main focus of most of the CGI, and the supporting characters all have superpowers too. This means that pretty much everyone on screen has moments where crazy things are happening all around them, and a lot of it is computer generated. While this is cool for sure to watch when it's finished, it does mean that filming can get a little silly. Behind the scenes footage shows the Flash in costume on set, camera crew all around, and he's looking very serious while waving his arms around. Below him, Supergirl jumps up and down on the spot. Both of them are frowning and looking dramatic. It looks absolutely hilarious watching them jumping around in full costume, but the finished product from the episode looks amazing. The arm waving that the Flash was doing was to whip up wind armor, and Supergirl lands dramatically below him. The CGI blends seamlessly with the actors as wind and fluorescent energy swirl around them, and you'd never know how silly they look during filming. The memorable scene of Grodd reclining on his throne, deciding out loud how to take over Central City, is also fully CGI. Grodd himself is totally computer generated, and the amount of detail in him is incredible. Every hair, all the texture on his armor is made by CGI artists. The enormous silverback gorilla is not the only eye-catching thing in this scene, as the entire background is the gorgeous and impressive Gorilla City, and they are at the summit at Grodd's throne room. However, the real-life version is much less exciting. There's actually only one person in that whole scene, and the poor actress is just standing by herself in a small room covered in green screen. No cityscape, no fun set, no ancient stone buildings, just 3 walls and green screen. Oh, and also a pole with a green light on top. Yep, that's so she knows where to look when talking to Grodd. How hard it must have been to act that out, with nobody to act alongside. Speaking of Grodd, the episode featuring Gorilla City was one of the most expensive episodes the series has ever made. The budget was sky high, and the reason for that was the incredible use of visual effects during the episode's creation. The city is so huge, they couldn't physically build the whole thing, and they decided to use computer-generated sets with green screens instead of building smaller sets. The entire city had to be sculpted on a computer from the ground up, and some cool behind-the-scenes footage shows the different stages of development that went into it. It looks incredibly complicated. Riverdale is another incredibly popular show on the CW show, but unlike The Flash, it's not as, well, flashy. It's much darker and grittier, and there's far fewer instances where CGI is necessary. The characters don't have crazy superpowers, and nobody flies through time and space for weird alien landscapes, so any computer-generated visual effects are much more subtle. But let's take a close look. Do you remember Black Hood? How could anyone forget the serial killer that was ripping through the community, responsible for so many unsolved murders? The only clue we had about the identity of the killer was his eyes, bright, vivid, unmistakable green, as that was his only identifying feature. Show's creators really needed to make it obvious, so characters would be able to connect the dots and solve the case. So they used CGI on close-ups of Black Hood to make his eyes a very noticeable green. When the time came for the characters to put 2 and 2 together, they made sure to have the scenes with Betty's father in to have his eyes altered to be greener than usual. It's a very subtle use of CGI, but a good example of how visual effects can be used to add a smaller element to a TV show. Now here's one we had no idea about. The famous scene where Cheryl Blossom tried to commit suicide by drowning in the frozen over lake? Yup, CGI. The actress behind the character Madeline has a real-life phobia of water. The scene where she sails on a boat with her on-screen brother was apparently the most terrifying scene she has ever had to do, even though nothing happened apart from them being on a boat. But Madeline is really afraid. Once it got to the lake scene, there was no way producers were going to put her through the stress of jumping in an enormous body of water, or even forcing her to film in a pool. So the whole shot was computer generated. They had Madeline jump into an empty space and CGI'd the water over the top. She was filming with a fan blowing to make her hair wave as though it was underwater, and the blue light was rippled over her digitally to make it look realistic. This is one scene we would have never never have guessed it wasn't really filmed in water. It looks so convincing. There's another dramatic scene where the grove is set on fire. Huge flames roar up the trees from the man-made blaze. The culprit is seen walking away with a gas canister, completely unharmed. This would obviously be an incredibly dangerous situation for an actor to be in, and they can't have one of their show's stars using gasoline to set a tree on fire. So the scene was helped along with a little CGI. No trees were harmed in the filming of Riverdale, and clever camera work and visual effects made it possible for the grove to be burned down. The CGI team even cast a yellow glow from the flames over the actor's face when he was close by to the fire, making it really look as though he was right there. The skill of the tech team made it possible to have such a dangerous and dramatic event in the show. Our last example from Riverdale is perhaps the most intense. Luke Perry, an actor on the show who played Fred Edwards, Archie's father, passed away suddenly from a heart attack. This left a huge hole in the show, and producers of the show were struggling to find a way to address his absence in a way that would resolve his character arc tastefully and suitably. They decided to kill off his character, but didn't want to do the scene off-screen, as they felt his character and his legacy deserved more than that. They took unused footage they already had and combined it with CGI to make an emotional scene where the other characters could come to deal with his passing. Without such a talented visual effects team, scenes like this wouldn't be possible. Another superhero-themed entry into this video today is Smallville. This popular show ran for 10 years and focused on Superman's origin story. While the storytelling is incredibly well loved and cherished by fans, the visual effects used had often left more to be desired, and that's putting it polite. One scene in particular involved a bullet being fired in slow motion. Obviously, to move the camera around a spinning bullet, you need the help of CGI. Whether the budget wasn't simply there, or the team they used didn't have the latest visual tech, the effect was lackluster. The textures looked pretty bad, and when you notice, you can't unnotice it. The close-up just made it look incredibly fake, and the little air trails around it didn't help much either. Another detailed shot which ruined the mood in this show was when the red kryptonite ring was destroyed. The CGI of the ring breaking into shards was fine at a distance, but for some reason, maybe to add some drama, the director wanted a close-up shot of the ring being smashed in slow motion. The broken pieces of CGI kryptonite floating outwards in slow-mo just looked completely pretend. Rewatch it, you'll see what we mean. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and as always, please remember to leave a like down below because it really helps out the channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our future content.